What's up guys, Mickle here, and we actually just got a brand new filing in the Ripple SEC case out of the SEC in this video. I want to quickly touch on that. Most importantly though, really go over whether or not this is going to cause any delays in the summary judgment motion we have all been waiting for. In this video, we're going to talk about that as well as a very exciting announcement that just came out of Ripple involving CBDCs. In this video, I want to break down why this CBDC project I'm going to talk about is such a big deal, so make sure to stick around for that. Last of all, at the end of the video, we're going to talk about a massive event taking place tomorrow that is going to dictate the future direction of the market. Depending on this event that takes place tomorrow, it can completely decide whether or not we go into a bull market or continue into the current bear trend we have been in. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video to see that. You are not going to want to miss it. Like always, guys, if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a couple seconds and it's going to help this channel out so much. Also, if you ever need a good place to buy some XRP or the Flare token, make sure to check out the link in the description of this video for Uphold. It's my favorite exchange. With that said though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So let's jump right into it, and I want to start off and quickly cover the document that the SEC just filed to the Ripple SEC case. Now this is actually a letter of supplemental authority. It's essentially just the SEC saying, hey Judge Torres, look at this other case where the judge decided on fair notice in this way. You should decide in the same exact way in the Ripple SEC case. Now, I went through the document they actually filed, and it didn't seem that strong to me. It's important to note that relating any case to the current Ripple SEC case is kind of hard considering this case is so unique and there's obviously never been another case like this. So I don't know how much this really means to the case. I saw a couple people breaking it down in a more legal way, and it seemed like, yeah, the SEC had a point here or there, but ultimately it's just not that important of a document. So outside of them actually filing this thing and what it means, because ultimately I don't think it's really going to mean anything. I have a feeling Judge Torres already really has her mind up on how she's going to rule. She's likely just going through the final processes of drafting everything. So irrespective of what was actually in this motion by the SEC, I want to talk about whether or not it's going to delay Judge Torres's summary judgment motion, because this is a question I actually had. Regardless of whether or not she even wants to look at this document, she probably has to at least read it in case the SEC found something absolutely shocking. So most likely she's going to have to read this document. And I was also thinking, well, Ripple also has the right to reply to this document. So how much could this delay things? So I reached out to some lawyers in the XRP community, and it seems like max this could delay things maybe a week. And ultimately, it really just comes down to how long it takes Ripple to respond to this, and then Judge Torres to read those responses. I really don't see it being that long. Ultimately, this really isn't a critical filing at all. It doesn't have much significance. Therefore, I doubt Ripple's really going to take a ton of time and effort filing this response. Either way, it's good to know that most of the lawyers following this case say it will have very little impact on the timeline for summary judgment, if it even has any impact. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. It kind of looks like this filing's not going to amount to much. Either way, though, I thought I'd give you guys the update. So now I want to move on and talk about something a little more exciting, and that is Ripple's newest CBDC project with Montenegro. Now, Montenegro is a tiny country, so a lot of people outside the XRP community, and even some in the XRP community, are kind of coming out and saying, oh, who cares about this tiny little country? This is such a small project. It's never going to have any big impact on the price of XRP. Well, I want to break down why this is actually a very big deal, and I'm starting to notice a very interesting pattern in the countries who are actually adopting Ripple's XRP private ledgers for central bank digital currencies. So I want to start off and just point out something pretty important. Even though Montenegro is a small country and not part of the European Union nor the Eurozone, they actually use the euro as their currency. Now this is pretty interesting because Brad Garlinghouse himself said on stage with the IMF that if XRP is ever to become a global reserve currency, we need a country to adopt it as their legal currency. And right here we have a country adopting the XRP ledger to create its own legal currency. This essentially makes it so the IMF may have to hold XRP in the future, which is definitely pretty significant. It's also extremely important to understand that even though Montenegro is not currently in the European Union or part of the Eurozone, they are currently applying to become part of the European Union. It's also very significant that they use the euro as their currency. In order for them to have euros, they have to have a direct relation with the European Union central banks. This means that the European Union central banks are going to have to start interacting with the XRP ledger. To me, this looks like a massive test for the European Union to ultimately start using the XRP ledger. We know Ripple is already gaining a massive amount of adoption in Europe. We know the Bank of England was one of Ripple's first paying customers. These bigger countries in the European Union are not going to be the first one to start tokenizing currency on the XRP ledger. They want to start out small and they want to test things and work out the kinks. But once they know it works and once they see the efficiency that it is generating, the larger countries are going to start to move over. Montenegro is a testing ground for what the rest of the European Union is ultimately going to do, and there is zero doubt in my mind about that. Since Montenegro is already using the euro, it shows that there is a general direction for the entire European Union to start tokenizing their money, and it looks like the XRP ledger is going to be the front runner for this project. And what I find that is so interesting is almost the same exact thing is happening right now in Palau. Palau is a small island nation, but what is so interesting about Palau is they actually use the US dollar. Not only that, but they have direct accounts with the Federal Reserve, and they are tokenizing their currency, or they're tokenizing US dollars on the XRP ledger. This means that the US Federal Reserve is going to have a way to interact with Palau's central banks, which are going to be tokenizing US dollar on the XRP ledger. Meaning the US Federal Reserve is going to have to interact with the XRP ledger. This means that there is no way Palau started building a CBDC on the XRP ledger without the approval of the Federal Reserve. And that's what's so important here. It's not that these small nations are building CBDCs on the XRP ledger. What is significant here is the ties that these specific small countries have. They don't have their own currency. Instead, they are using the currencies of larger nations that have to interact with these smaller nations. This means that these larger nations have already said, okay, you're building on the XRP ledger, sounds good to us. And it might even be more than that. It might even be that these larger nations have plans to ultimately issue their own currency on the XRP ledger, or at least have the option to directly interact with it. This is really where everything is moving towards. And just the other day, and I thought this was so interesting, Ripple's Twitter account was commenting on a brand new amendment being brought to the XRP ledger, which is hooks. It's essentially a very simple form of smart contracts, and the first example they gave was how banks could use hooks to help improve their payment flows. What I see happening, and I think Ripple is kind of alluding to this, is these smaller nations are going to start tokenizing money on the XRP ledger, and what we are going to see is the bigger nations are going to start out using the XRP ledger simply by interacting with these smaller nations, but ultimately they are going to continue to adopt it and roll out their own products built directly on the ledger. Guys, Elon Musk skyrocketed the price of Doge simply by tweeting about it. Just imagine what's going to happen when the US has their own form of the dollar built directly on the XRP ledger, and the Federal Reserve is using it to transact value all around the world. Right now, this is directly where we're headed. This is the future economy. This is the future financial system we are moving towards. It's just a matter of time, and it's a matter of getting the regulatory clarity we need in order to build this future. And I want to finish this video off and quickly talk about a massive event taking place tomorrow, and this is going to directly impact whether or not we are able to get some positive price momentum in the market, or whether or not we're going to continue the bear trend. This is the most critical thing happening in the world right now, and that event is CPI. Tomorrow we're going to find out what inflation is in the United States. Last month it was 6%, and we're looking for 5.2% this month. Now, Now, if you're sitting there thinking, wow, that's a pretty big drop, yes, it is. And if you take a look at this chart, you can see that inflation is on a very steady downtrend, and to put in a bar at the 5% mark would be massive. Now, a lot of people who I don't think really follow what's going on in the economy are predicting hyperinflation. They're predicting inflation to go to like 10, 20%. And I just don't understand where these people are getting this data. It is so clear inflation is coming down, and it's also very clear that in order for markets to go back up, we need inflation to go away. That is the only way the Federal Reserve is going to stop hiking interest rates, and that is what has been keeping the market down. What we can see is that an inflation percentage at 5% on this chart would show that we are definitely going into a period where inflation is going back to normal, and I have a feeling that's exactly what we are going to see. Just to give you guys a little prediction of what I think is going to take place tomorrow, I want to show you an interesting company. They're called Trueflation, and what they do is they report inflation using their own data rather than the government data. And they have inflation at 4.31%, and they have really been front running all the statistics put out by the government. And it's not like this company always has inflation lower. They actually had inflation higher than the US government at the peak, and now they actually have inflation lower than where the US government is reporting. So if this is right, we are currently watching a plummet in inflation, which if this takes place, which it looks like it's gonna, this would allow the Federal Reserve to finally pivot on their monetary policy, and that would be extremely bullish for the market. Let's see what takes place tomorrow. We want to see an inflation number come in at least 5.2% or lower, and that would be absolutely amazing. And what we see right now is actually a lot of the central banks are already forecasting that this is exactly what we're going to see. We saw the New York Fed President Williams the other day said that if inflation comes down, the Fed will have to lower rates rapidly. I have a feeling they're forecasting what they know is going to happen. Inflation is going away. The people who don't understand what's going on are completely missing the boat here. The financial system isn't as bad as many people think. And if things sort themselves out, get ready. We could be in a very exciting time period. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. It means so much. And for now, Mickle out.